are now on Community Connect week 16. Why I chose this topic, I don't know, because it's kind of was a punishment for me to try and unpack this. African solutions for tomorrow's supply chain. And that's why I say I'm going to need some help from our smart audience here. Going to give me some insight into this very topic. So this Elaine sent to me this week, and I felt it was really, really a true reflection. I kind of think of where we're all at right now in day 100 and whatever of lockdown. I don't know about anybody else, but that's kind of my vibe right now that's happening. How are you feeling? That's it. That's me. I don't know who else is in the same boat, but we are starting to take a little bit of strain. I guess at least we can go to the hairdresser and do whatever else it is that needs to be done. But that's my vibe at the moment. So yeah, hopefully it'll improve from here. So welcome to Community Connect for those of you that haven't been here before. It's our weekly session. We get together, we chat, we talk about a topic, and we have some discussion, share ideas, and it's really just to get the community together to engage and stay connected, if you want to put it that way. So I want to start off today with, normally we do an introduction for people in the group, but today I want to go with the positive thinking approach. So things are tough at the moment, and it really is difficult a lot of the time to stay on point and focused and positive. As every day goes by, I think it becomes more and more of a challenge, especially with everything that's going on around us. So either you're going to volunteer, I'm going to pick on you. So can we have some hands up? Somebody tell me something positive that's happened to you in the last week. And I'm not, okay. Jenny, you go for it.
I woke up.
Okay, that's a good start. Okay, can anybody do one better than that?
I get to work from bed.
Okay, that's one step closer to positive, I guess. Okay, somebody hit me with something here. Come on. Something positive, something great.
I haven't had to spend very much money on petrol lately. It's been fabulous. The car doesn't need to be filled up very much at all.
No, I can concur with that one. That is a very, very big positive. Okay, so some positive, nothing groundbreaking or stuff that's going to blow our hair back, but it's a good start. At least there are some positive things coming through. Okay, so Albert Einstein once said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. And I think that that's probably the situation that we find ourselves in now. And so this leads me into the discussion of today, because I think as a continent, where we are now gives us opportunity. So the discussion was solutions for African supply chains. I have given some thought to solutions, but I've kind of unpacked some of the challenges that we as a continent face, some of the similarities, and put forward some ideas or thoughts. And I really want some chatter and some input from you guys from the floor here to tell me more about what your thoughts are. So if we look at one of the things that probably is top of mind, other than COVID right now, is corruption. It's ongoing and escalating, and literally it has to stop. So this morning we had a meeting with the Interim Council for Supply Chain Management. It's an initiative that's being driven by National Treasury. And ethics and behavior and accountability came up for discussion. And everybody's on the same path, in an agreement that we need to do this, we need to address it, we need to stop it as professional bodies. How do we do this? What do we do? But it goes beyond that. There needs to be recourse and there needs to be action. people need to be punished for what they're doing. So it should be criminal justice for what they've done. Because if you look at the bigger picture of what corruption's doing, it is taking away healthcare, it's taking away food, it's taking away education from the people that need it. So corruption is a big problem. It's an African problem from a continent point of view, and it affects each and every one of us. There also needs to be public accountability for it. The problem is how to enforce it. People do not want to report on, sorry, that's my cat, if you can hear it whining in the background. People don't necessarily want to be whistleblowers. Why? Because they're scared of losing their jobs. They're scared of what the implications of that will be. So how do we start rooting out that corruption? So it has to come from the very, very top at government level. However, that being said, that's where the bulk of it happens. So this is a challenge for all of us. And does anybody have any thoughts on what could be a solution to this? It's a big one. It's a big one.
Education.
Definitely education. Definitely education. And I think that we need to also be cognizant of the fact that it's not just public sector either. You know, as they say, it takes two to tango. So private sector are just as guilty of being part of the party as the public sector are. Sandra, you put up your... Hello.
I think from my side, hello, hi.
Hi.
I think there must be stringent measures put in place, consequences. Most of the time you hear, we have suspended so-and-so, we're investigating this for corrupt activities, and then later it just goes silent. Or if it's in government, you hear the person has been deployed elsewhere, they've been removed from this role to another role. So there's not much that's like stopping people knowing that if I do this, it's either, if I'm a procurement professional, I should be like either my license or my like the doctors, you know, you strapped off the role or whatever, but there isn't anything. So you find even people in procurement, no matter what body you belong to, you know, even if you're involved in corrupt activities, it has got nothing, it doesn't impact much on your career. You can still move on and do something else, or, you know, you can leave the job where you are and work somewhere else. So there must be stringent measures taken into place. People must be jailed for doing corrupt activities.
I agree with you, Sabine. So with your sentiments wholeheartedly. Absolutely, they should face jail time, but they should not be allowed to have a career in supply chain management. That should be stripped of them, and definitely they should not be allowed back in the profession. So we as SAPICS have taken a stand in that regard with the professional body aspects. But it's a long journey, and we've got a long way to go before we kind of get there, I think. So we've got corruption, then we've got infrastructure. So if you look at Africa in the bigger picture, moving goods from point A to B. In sub-Saharan Africa, barring South Africa, as real challenges associated with transportation infrastructure. Okay, in other countries, they've had great improvements in the infrastructure, and things are somewhat better. However, reaching the lower tier cities or the rural areas specifically remains a big challenge. So what is the solution? Obviously, infrastructure development. How do we go about that? Do we get it from investments? What sort of other solutions could we put forward in terms of improving our infrastructure, given that it takes money? And I mean, we are all not flourish with cash at the moment. I don't think in any African country. So is it international investment that's going to be our saving grace? If it is, who are we selling ourselves out to? Because that's typically how it goes. you take something and you give a whole lot back. So I don't know, does anybody have any sound thoughts or ideas in terms of how we can improve on our infrastructure, how we can get investment for improving the infrastructure? I mean, if you just look at South Africa and you look at our rail infrastructure, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Anybody that deals with the rail knows that it's a nightmare. If you look at you know, the ports and things like that, it's a nightmare to get anything out of the ports, and that's on a good day. Without take COVID-19 out of the picture. So those are one of the other things that we need to think about. Daniel, you make a good point. Corruption is causing the failure and neglect of infrastructure. Yes. Dave.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think, you know, it goes back to political will, first of all. Okay. And I don't want to get political because this is not a political platform, but we have to start at the top. If you take a systems thinking approach, you've got to start at the top. And one of the ways of making a change is changing our the way that we vote and making our politicians responsible directly to the electorate and not to the party. Because at the moment there's no consequences because they won't get voted out. Having said that, that's by and by. Okay, moving on to the infrastructure. I don't know if any of you saw the carte blanche insert on Sunday night. Since COVID has been in, a number of train stations have been completely ransacked because nobody's using them. You know, there are no passengers moving through them, and these are major stations that are where the workforce actually gets, you know, catches trains to get to work. They've ripped up the stations. They've actually, in certain sections, they've stolen sleepers off from the railway line itself. And yeah, no, it's frightening because once we get over COVID, we're going to now have to go and repair a whole lot of railway. And that then brings to mind the IMF loan. What's it, $4.7 billion US from the IMF loan. How is that going to be broken down and how is that going to be used, you know, within South Africa? So yeah, that's something that we're going to need a lot of clarity on, because that's the money that we're going to need to rebuild after COVID with.
Yeah. With massive loans that we have taken out that I'm not sure we're going to be able to pay off anytime soon or in the near future. Just reading some points in that are coming in here now. Going back to the corruption, we need a culture change. We need to be honest people, and we need to take a zero tolerance approach to those that are not. And absolutely, I agree. You know, and it always goes back to together everybody achieves more. If we stand together and we say no more, and we take a firm approach to this, surely there are ways around it. Sure, there are ways that we can make a difference. The comment here about train stations becoming an opportunity where infrastructure becomes a commodity. These are all really good and relevant points. So infrastructure, not only was it in a poor state before, we're now worse off following COVID-19. And infrastructure hasn't been maintained. It hasn't been looked after. And so that's a big one. Let's just park that one. That's a big one. You need infrastructure to have a successful country and economy. So let's park that one. We can think on some more of the infrastructure comments as we go along. Okay, so movement of goods. Very interesting, this one. It is unbelievably difficult to move goods between different countries throughout Africa. So as much as we are part of the same continent and we're all Africans, the customs and regulatory environments are very diverse. So there are different rules and regulations for every border that you need to cross, which makes things very, very, very complex and difficult. So surely there is a way that there could be collaboration to ease up business and how we work as a continent together. Easier said than done, I guess. Ports, airports, rail and road infrastructure is a struggle because of the bottlenecks. So there are always bottlenecks. Like I've said, trying to get anything out of the ports was a problem before COVID-19. Now it's backed up as far as you can see. We now talk about, okay, passenger rail, but you know, the rail stations are being, what do they call it? Vandalized, everything's being stolen. So again, what is the solution? Investment, development of more infrastructure, development of more support costs more money that we don't have, that's been lost to corruption. So does anybody have any thoughts on movement of goods? Is there anything that we could do as Africans collectively to improve this?
Hello.
Hello, Matthew.
Yeah, to me, I think that we should tackle it from African Union point of view. For example, if you take EU, European Union, if you are sending goods from maybe Belgium to Norway, there will be no artificial border system. 1 or 2 days, the person will receive the item. For example, as at now, I'm sending a document to La Côte d'Ivoire within Africa. They told me that you take 1 week from Ghana to La Côte d'Ivoire. We share border. By car, about 1 day or 12 hours from Accra to La Côte d'Ivoire. But they told me that it will take 1 week. But from Ghana to Norway, it takes 3 days. So what is the issue? So we should rather tackle it from African Union point of view. If we are together, we should remove the artificial or the borders, so that when you are sending any goods straight away, it will reach the point of destination that you want to send the goods to. So I think that is the main issue in Africa now.
That is a very, very good point. Jenny's talking about the Africa Free Trade Zone is supposed to be the solution for this. Is it, or is it still prohibitive? It sounds like it's not working like it should. But agreed, I think as Africans, together we need to address, and come up with a formulation or a strategy that works for all and serves all.
Tanya?
Yes. Gary.
Hi, it's Gary. How are you?
Good, and you?
I think it's also to do with trust and power. Mm-hmm. So people in each country is trying to dictate that they're powerful, and they put on certain rules and regulations that, it's almost like our lockdown regulations. It's only the government trying to be able to flash control on us. They don't make sense. They don't mean anything. And a lot of the rules in trade are the same thing. And the biggest trading partners aren't African countries with African countries. They're actually European or American or China. And that's where you need the controls. For them to actually have easy trade internally in Africa would actually be a benefit. We see this, our project in Kenya, the nightmare. The certification of items, the inspections that have got to happen for those items, it's an absolute nightmare. It adds major delays, major confusions. The other thing that triggers in a SEZ zone, which is supposed to be tax and duty free, the bureaucracy to get that approved and to get it going, and the understanding has taken 9 months. So
and 9 months of money and wait and delay and
demurrage and all sorts of other things that become consequential because you're waiting for relaxations.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we don't help each other. And I think the African Union talks and so on. If you look at Africa as a continent, it's bigger than all the other continents. I mean, we have 1.3 billion population. So we're close to the size of India and getting close to China. So if we treated our country as population-wise with the same numbers, we'd actually be competitive with them. As long as we take a micro approach and treat each country as its own entity and try to fight that, you're never going to become large.
No,
so until we move, we've got to move to that level. So until people can see that vision and move to that level, and with the corruption and the own political power play, and unfortunately the people in Africa are still trying to develop their own politics, and each country's going their own way and power. So it's we're not at a mature state that an African Union could actually work functionally. And what will happen is, unfortunately, we're going to be colonized by the Chinese before we get to a free trade in Africa. So they're going to build all the roads and freeways and harbors to actually take over countries and have free trade agreements for that investment, which will benefit them, which is indirectly a colonization of Africa.
Yeah, you spot on there. I think that, and I talked about it just now, you kind of selling your soul out to China. If it's not China, it'll be somebody else. But yeah. You're right on the money there. Thanks, Gary, for your...
Also, Tonya, yes. Even those areas in the world that say they're united, like the United States of America, they're nowhere near united. The EU, not united. We've got Brexit coming up. Everybody's arguing with each other in the EU. So, you know, other people have problems as well, trying to put areas together and try and work together. So it's not easy, and it's going to be even more difficult for us in Africa, I think.
Yeah, I think that you might be right there, but we can try. We're trying to remain positive in all of this. I mean, I know this sounds like an awful lot of doom and gloom, but we are trying to stay positive here. Okay, technology is another one. So if we look at, you know, Africa in the bigger picture, I think in previous sessions we talked about some of the incredible stuff that's being done, and Gary's project with Twiga is one very example of that, where they are exceeding technological advancements from a global perspective, never mind a African perspective. But there's not enough use of technology. A lot of companies operate on a combination of software, Excel. I mean, we all know the Excel story. Everybody's got an Excel somewhere, and pen and paper. And although the mobile technology holds great potential, a few companies have viable commercial models that enable this to work. So I think a solution to that is to investigate viable solutions that are time and cost effective and are innovative. I guess that's easier said than done. But moving on from that, we keep talking about visibility, and how we need visibility in the supply chain, especially now with COVID-19. And poor information technology leads to lack of visibility in the supply chain, which obviously proves to be problematic on the supply chain in terms of being able to see the end-to-end, or what's happening, or what's stocking out, what's not, what's happening with your suppliers. And I think in terms of the visibility aspects, I think that even the bigger organizations, they look at this and it's kind of like it's too big to do, it's too much of a chunk. And I think with anything, start small, with a combination, and even if it's technology and some manual processes, and build from that. So take bite-sized chunks, take a small project and build on it from there. I don't know, Gary, if you want to give some insight here. I mean, you've done some really good stuff with Twiga, and this speaks directly to this type of topic that we're looking at now.
Tanya, am I unmuted? Yeah. I think the big thing is as well is what technology is in Europe or America is different to technology here. So one has to adapt, and what Twiga's done is use cell phone technology. Okay, and that's available universally. So the models and the thinking has to be around that. And that's where Africa will accelerate and catch up and possibly overtake as this technology develops and we adapt and we understand it and use it cleverly. But even in South Africa, we're way behind. We're not doing cashless transactions with cell phones. We hardly. I mean, we've got a little bit of SnapScan happening out there, and everyone's fighting for territory instead of having one thing. I mean, America's now big into this now with COVID-19 and Apple Pay and all of that. We don't see that in South Africa. So we're one of the, it's Nigeria and South Africa, the two big economies, and we're not even playing in that. So we've gone backwards, whereby our banking sector used to be one of the leading banking sectors in the world. We're now backwards. So it's actually quite depressing.
Just based on what you just said, Gary, I got a message from FNB saying next week we don't need to take our cards to the shop anymore. We can use our cell phones to pay for things. So maybe we're catching up.
Maybe we'll catch up, Ken. But and I know that, for instance, all the retailers are putting in apps right now that you can make payments, but then you're going on to different systems. There isn't one simple universal system. So you've got a different system. These stores accept SnapScan, these stores accept some other, I forget the name of it, and then there's something that's working with Absa and something that's working with Nedbank and something else with Standard Bank. And I mean, where we were really ahead of the curve is we had, what do they call it, SASwitch, where all of our ATMs worked universally in South Africa. I remember being in the States that you could not go to any ATM and draw. You had to go specifically to the one that was linked to your bank. And we were way ahead of that curve in South Africa in having something that was universally acceptable. And through the SASwitch thing that you could go to any bank's ATM and draw cash. Look, we won't be going to ATMs to draw cash in the future, so that will become a dead technology. But we've got to get to a universal cell phone. And one of the things is, the other thing is, all of our cell phones have got NFC chips in board. Most of the new cell phones have even got dual SIM technology. But our cell phone operators haven't even rolled this out. And the cost of data and the cost of managing this is so expensive here. So we get stuck into these type of monopolies and control efforts instead of developing collaborative solutions.
Yeah, I think I've also got a Barclays account in the UK, and I reckon my FNB website bank here in South Africa is streaks ahead of the UK Barclays one. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But on another point, as far as technology is concerned, I've just been involved with this implementation, DDMRP implementation with Coca-Cola around Africa. And I've been totally amazed. The guys we've got in Africa are not stupid, eh? They've picked up this technology and they're using it, and no problem at all. So, you know, our people are, if you give them the technology, they'll use it. And I was really impressed with how people very quickly picked up this technology and started to use it.
But that's the thing, Ken, you're quite correct. There is nothing wrong with our people. Some of the people in South Africa have been held back with education historically and whatever. But if you look at the education level of people coming out of Africa, out of DRC, out of Zimbabwe, they're highly educated, they speak properly. I mean, the level of education in those countries, in Kenya and DRC and those countries, is up with the best in the world. Those people are well educated, and when they get technology, they adapt to it, and they're not lazy. So we've just got to, but where we get held back is corruption, bureaucracy, and parochial approach to life. And we don't have enough entrepreneurs and people that think out of the box, that are looking at developing industry and opportunities. And that's where the big change will come.
I think picking up on what Gary has said there, one of the additional problems in terms of cell phone banking is the actual bank charges. Up in Africa, you don't have anywhere near the level of charges that you have in South Africa. And I think we'll hear some of this from Gigi Alcock at the conference coming up when he speaks, because this is one of his biggest bugbears that he's been trying to tackle, is get the, you know, the cost of banking down. So yeah, but as far as the technology goes, it's absolutely amazing how quickly people adapt to the technology.
They do need to adapt, but they need something to adapt to. And I think that this is a really good opportunity for Africa to make its mark from an entrepreneurial way, as you say, Gary. I mean, there's great opportunities. Who was talking about some chap in where was he? In Vietnam or somewhere, that created some game as an app and made shed loads of money with a simple game. I mean, it just takes a little bit of creativity and a little bit of effort. And I think there are so many opportunities for us to grow and develop in the space. But you've got to have people that want to take them and are going to work with them. So, yep, we are not far ahead, but we're not. I don't think we're at the back of the queue. So I suppose that's a positive. We'll park that one as a. We're in between.
I don't know, Tonya. I think Africa's got a huge opportunity to leapfrog. The rest of the world's been dragging along with technologies and updates, blah 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 blah. We can forget about all that and just leapfrog straight into the latest methodologies, latest technologies. And we're not bringing all that baggage with us, which a lot of people have got. You know, they've been working in industry for 30, 40 years. They've got all this baggage. And when you try and introduce something new, and, oh, you know, it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. We can leapfrog all that. You know, we don't have to go through all that old stuff, and we can get into the new.
No, that's a very good point, Ken. Yeah, that's a very good point. So everybody park that, and we want you to come up with some seriously good technological advancement ideas for us to take Africa forward. But there are good opportunities. Okay, so skills and unemployment. So previous topic, we talked about there being more skills. I think as a whole, collectively in Africa, we have a low skills base, and we also have very high unemployment rates. Obviously, it differs across the continent, but Africa predominantly is low in skills with high unemployment, and that sometimes inhibits the move to adopt technological solutions that could save money and improve effectiveness. It's a bit of a balancing act. So you've got to balance the adoption and training and development to build other skill sets. So if you want to go and adopt technology that's going to improve your business, but potentially is going to reduce your staff complement or how many employees you need, there are other skill sets that need to be developed to provide those people with opportunities to be employed or do something else. But I think that's not something that's unique to us. That's a global phenomenon at the moment. If you look at all the robotics and things that are going on, I think the rest of the world has similar type of problems. So that is not by any stretch of the imagination unique to Africa. So we're not alone in that one. Any comments on the education and the training side of things? Other than the fact that we should all be doing that as supply chain professionals, continuously developing people.
Tonya, I think that our SMME drive that we're doing at the moment through SAPEX is going to become a good platform to educate people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we just need to drive, you know, the corporates to fund it through their BEE and skills levy funding. So hopefully, you know, we've got a number of people that we're in contact with. And if anybody here, please, knows of people, this is a SAPEX initiative. Please, if you've got contacts in industry, please give them to Tanya, or you can send them to me, because this is how SAPEX is going to make a difference in South Africa and hopefully up into Africa.
Yeah, it definitely has the potential to do that. And I think as well at the same time it speaks to the previous the previous slide where we talked about innovation and technology. I mean, if we can build capacity with these people and we can upskill them, you know, there's a wealth of opportunity out there. So skills and unemployment, distance, the way that we look at cities and hubs and things like that, they are often too far apart for it to be cost effective to get economies of scale. So is there an opportunity to increase commercial clusters to make this more viable or to help achieve this? This I don't know, this is not an area of my skill set. This is not part of my skill set. So if we look at looking to create more of an economic of scale structure, is that achievable? If you look at Africa as a whole and then within the different African countries. So there's something to think about, but I don't know if anybody has got something that they'd like to contribute to this point, because it's definitely not something that I'm on top of here.
I just think from a, if people have been on LinkedIn, there have been a couple of instances. I know DHL have promoted their system and United Postal Services theirs, where they are using drones to fly medical supplies out to remote areas. It takes, for one of the examples, it takes 20 minutes to fly the supplies out to this village from the depot, and it takes, I think, 3.5 hours to commute to that same, you know, to that same village. And so these are the distances, and also where infrastructure is lacking. And there are some of the phenomenal designs of drone that are being used that can fly up to 120, 150 kilometers an hour, and also land vertically, you know, just by adjusting their props from the vertical to the horizontal. So yeah, you just need to Google that, and you can actually see, you know, some of the development that's happening.
Yeah, I was very lucky, and I had the opportunity when I was in Rwanda last year to go to the zip line, whatever it's called, the zip line place where they do all the drones and delivering medical. At the moment, they're doing red blood cells predominantly, but a 7.5 hour drive can be reduced to I think it's a 35-minute flight to take red blood cells to a clinic and return. And I think, you know, that to see that actually happen is quite phenomenal.
That is,
and that's just one example.
Zipline were the first to come out. Sorry to speak over you, but Zipline were the first to come out with that technology, and it's been phenomenal how people have learned from that and grown, you know, and made it far more flexible now.
So there's a lot of opportunity for growth. Sorry.
But if you really want to move volumes and move activity, you need infrastructure and roads and rail and that type of investment. You cannot go on farm tracks, and you cannot have the congestion in these major cities. So if you go to Nairobi, the success of Twiga is because of the infrastructure that exists. And they keep promising to build proper infrastructure around Nairobi to get traffic moving. But typically, I mean, to go from Twiga's offices to the airport, which is a 12-kilometer drive, can take you anything up to 3 hours.
Oh.
Depending on the time of day. And the best you're going to be doing is if you arrive on the flight from South Africa, it arrives at midnight, you're into a half-an-hour drive for 12 kilometers. Okay, so, and that's why big box retail isn't working in Kenya and only has about 5 to 7% market share, because if we go shopping, we don't shop more than 15 minutes travel distance to a store that we shop at. And if you take that and you extrapolate that, you've got to get your footfall to support a store within 1 or 2 kilometers. That's impossible. So most stores in South Africa work on a 10 to 15 kilometer radius, unless you're in Hillbrow or something where you can get to a more dense situation. And until we get that type of infrastructure in place, you've got problems across Africa in terms of intercity travel between the cities, major freeways. I mean, if you look at the infrastructure that's being built in China right now, and the change that's happened in culture in China. My first visit to China was in 2006. And if you go to China today, there's more freeways, there's more railway kilometers than the whole of America. And that's built in the last couple of years. And we're not developing stuff like that fast enough. And the stuff in South Africa, nothing's been developed for years. I mean, other than a bit of freeway development that happened during the World Cup, we've done nothing.
No. I mean, and the Gautrain that only does certain routes that, I mean,
yeah,
really,
that was also linked to World Cup, Tanya.
Yeah.
It was linked to the World Cup. Okay, so other than that, we haven't built anything. I've just done a project in Switzerland where they are building, in 2030, they will go live with a hyperloop that will be underground for carrying goods. And they will be taking trucks off their freeways. Most people don't realize that in Switzerland, you cannot work in any commodity, clothing, grocery, or anything over at night or during weekends. You're only allowed to work in pharmaceuticals or perishable products after hours and weekends. So no DC is allowed to work shifts that go over day hours. No trucks are allowed to be on the road after hours, and that's a norm in Switzerland. They, you know, the guy says to me, "Don't you know that that's normal?" and that's how they work, you know. So you got to build capacity in those hours, and the next thing they're going to be doing is getting those trucks off the road. So they're busy planning. A hyperloop will go live in 2030. Elon Musk is part of it with his boring technology. It's all driven with what's the right technology? Levitation, electrical levitation. And basically we were involved in designing a distribution center, and we were informed that we have to build a hyperloop station into the distribution center now, so that we'll be able to load our products on rolltainers into a lift that will go underground into this hyperloop, and this hyperloop will take the stock. There won't be trucks. We'll take the stock into Zurich, into Bern, into Basel, and pop up at local stations, and there'll be little electric vehicles that drive over points in the road, and these rolltainers will pop up into the vehicle from underneath. The vehicle will close and drive off and do the last mile delivery to the supermarkets. And this is being planned right now. So there's vision and foresight. Now, if you're not, and this is 2 years ago, I was in Switzerland on this project. That's 12 years away, okay? And if you're not thinking ahead to what's going to happen for the next 10, 12 years, next 25 years, you're screwed. We're not going to get anywhere. So if we look at what's happened, I've been consulting in the Middle East. Into Dubai was 2001. The road between Jebel Ali, or the road between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, which passed Jebel Ali, was a 2-lane road, okay? If you drive on that road today, it is an 18-lane road.
Oh.
Okay, it's 9 on either side. Okay, and so they put together a master plan in terms of harbors, logistics, air corridors, everything, and built an economy and a country around that. They had the vision and foresight to realize that if they put the foundations in, business will follow. If we're not doing that, we're literally going to bottleneck ourselves into nowhere.
Yeah. Which is where we are.
And maybe it's a good thing that the Chinese are at least colonizing us and building these freeways and railway links for us, because no one else is doing it.
No, you're 100% right. And I mean, if you just go back to just silly examples, if you look at the work that's been done in fourways, for example, all the development of all those townhouses and shopping centers and the road that comes in and out of there, like, what was anybody thinking? I mean, how we don't even think about the sewerage or the electricity that's needed to service all that new development. Never mind roads coming in and out. So yeah, we've got a lot to learn and a long way to go.
The problem is we don't at a government level do a proper strategic planning and have a developmental plan that rolls out 20, 25 years.
No.
And so what happens is things go in and they're planned on a political basis. So this year we've got Zuma in town, so developments happen in KZN. The year before, the decade before, we had Mandela in power, so we did stuff in Kucha to appease his voting population. And the next guy gets something else, and it's all politically motivated for short term. I don't know what we're doing for Ramaphosa, so we don't see any big projects. But and those are the interesting things. I mean, in terms of what's happening in Africa, we don't think strategically, we don't think long term, and until we do that, we're literally screwed.
Yeah, no, we on that cheerful note, Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. You sure you want to invite me to the next one?
Listen, I like what you've got to share, and there's some definite webinars and case studies coming at you. So don't worry, I've got you on my radar here for that. Okay, so we covered a bit of this. Gary, you spoke about the fragmented markets, and if you look at how people need to get to the stores and where they're going to put them, it's obviously it comes down to the question, are the models designed to suit the market? In which case, if you're going to sit in 3 hours of traffic to get to a store, you are not actually going to get there. I think a lot of the market is serviced by the informal sector. So you've got a lot of the small roadside people that are selling things, that rural kind of SMME informal sector that's supporting a lot of the outside areas within Africa. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to add on that. But I think you spoke to quite a bit of that as well, Gary. Does anybody else have a comment? Okay, so yes, this one will get you going, Gary. Warehousing. So one of the problems is, and this is typically when businesses are trying to set up in African countries, they cannot get warehouse facilities that they need, that they are accustomed to. They're badly designed, poor yard management, ventilation, equipment, and professional warehousing facilities are scarce. So, I mean, I think a solution is obviously knowledge, education, access to best practices, and having people in the know putting together warehousing solutions that are fit for purpose, and are not just set up by people that think they know what a warehouse should look like. I mean, I think this whole warehousing thing is some sort of science, because there's so much that goes into it. It actually just sometimes blows my mind.
Tanya, thank you for that. But there is stuff happening. There are property developers starting to go into Africa. So Improvon and ALP are going in a big way. There's a lot of European funds. There's a lot of money coming out of the World Bank for infrastructure for food in Africa. So there is stuff that's starting to accelerate. We are involved with a lot of investment partners that are looking at developing in Africa. And the secret is to educate them that they need to use people like us to actually develop and design. So it's there. What's historical, and it was the same thing in Dubai 20 years ago, was what people build is multi-sheds. Rows and rows of 1,000 square meters, 500 square meters, all the same facilities. And what happens is people move in and rent one, and as their business grows, they rent the second one, break a hole in the wall, rent the third one. And if that's how Twiga operates right now, until the new facility is ready, they operate in 14 warehouses of about just over 1,800 square meters each. and they're 14 in a warehouse park. Some are linked, some are right on the other side. This warehouse park, I think, has 48 units, and it's whatever space is available they take as they grow. And I mean, it's like going into one of these multi-tenant parks in Joburg, Corporate Park North or Samrand or something. And it's fine for small SME type businesses, but for large companies, your Procter & Gamble's and so on, you've got to have big box warehousing. And that's starting to come. I don't think we were any different 20, 30 years ago. The big warehouses in South Africa were things like Old Mutual Park and City Deep and so on, and Southgate and whatever it is. And today we're getting these big mega parks. Okay, so Africa will get them, but you can't just have a mega park without the road infrastructure that links to it. So I always talk about balance. So it's no use building a warehouse that can take 20,000 pallets if I can't have a gatehouse that can get 20,000 pallets of movement in and out. If I don't get the roads that can get me 20,000 pallets of truck movement in and out. If I can't get staff to actually operate it. So you've got to create those balances, and that comes with time and education and development. I think supply chain isn't a trade or given a recognition in a lot of Africa as a profession, as a professional career path or venture that people can enter into. Most people who work in warehousing and supply chain and warehousing is a grudge task. I'm going to go carry boxes. Okay, I can't do anything else. I carry boxes.
No, you are right, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done to change that perception, because it's not like that at all. Well, supply chain is not like that.
I think COVID's been a great eye opener for people, because COVID in itself has actually been will be solved by supply chain. It will be solved by supply chain. Okay, mark my words. So we should be right now thinking there's 60 million people in South Africa, or 1.3 billion people in Africa. If we're going to have to inoculate them, assuming a vaccine comes along, we are going to need 1.3 billion needles ready. We're going to need 1.3 billion vials, 1.3 glass things, whatever you need for an inoculation, or a disinfectant swab, so you can infect. You need that, and you need a way to get it to market. That's a supply chain problem. It's not a medical problem. Okay, and people aren't thinking forward enough in terms of the supply chain need of that. And just if you talk South Africa by itself, we're going to need 60 million injectables. Why aren't we stockpiling them now? We don't need to wait for the vaccine to be available. But if the vaccine comes available and you don't have the injectable, the vaccine's worth nothing.
Exactly.
Okay, and so we don't have forward thinking on those things. If we think about social distancing is an industrial engineering function of managing peak, managing congestion, balancing flows, balancing workflows. It's not a medical problem. The requirement is medical, but separating people is an industrial engineering function, which is, and we're the foundation of supply chain.
Yeah, that's a lot for everybody to think about now. I think, in fact, we were having this discussion before everybody joined about how we are going to get the vaccine to everybody that needs it, and that it's up to supply chain to do that. But we can't afford to be reactive here. We need to be proactive. We are too reactive in a lot of cases. So we need to turn that around and try and just get at the front of this thing. But you know, there's only so far you can go, and then not if everybody's not on board with it. You know, how do we get government to step up and listen and to things that we have to say in terms of how all these things affect supply chain management and ultimately the economy.
I think we got a problem with our name supply chain, because when the government, if we talk to anyone intelligent in government, and you mention supply chain, they're automatically associated with fraud and corruption.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are tied to it through procurement. There's also a big confusion about procurement and
absolutely. So maybe we need to come up with a new name and buzzword around what we do that's not linked to what they perceive as procurement, which is fraud or corruption, and get some seriousness in people's thinking.
We're trying. We are trying. We are working with Treasury and some of the other government organizations to try and to unpack this, but it's very rigid. It's kind of like, this is supply chain. Even this morning when we were talking about code of ethics, and they were saying, well, is it procurement or supply chain? I mean, the fact that we have to have this discussion blows my mind. That's the level of indoctrination in terms of what they understand to be supply chain management, procurement. So you're right, it comes back to, where's the problem? Supply chain. Why? Because procurement sits there. So we get blamed for everything. But we need to elevate the profession. We need to make we need to clean it up.
But we've got a wonderful opportunity right now with COVID-19 that we will be the saviors because of COVID-19. And if we can educate people that supply chain is going to do that for them, we're going to come out the other side that everyone's going to say, hell, you all need to be in supply chain.
Exactly. Exactly. We do. We need to be shouting.
We need to learn how to market. Learn how to market. Okay.
Who? Sapix or all of us?
All of us. All of us. What's the biggest supply chain company in the world?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Anyone on listening?
Anybody? No?
Isn't it Coca-Cola?
No. Amazon.
Oh, of course. We should have known Amazon.
It's not a retailer anymore. It's a supply chain company.
No, that one we should have known.
Do you know that Amazon bought more 747 freighters last year than the total sales of all the other Boeing airlines?
Wow.
Okay. Do you know that that Amazon bought more Mercedes Sprinters and Ford Transit panel vans than the total sales of Ford cars for last year? Oh, sorry, of Ford pickups. All the rest. They because what's happened is they've gone into doing their last mile delivery themselves. So Amazon does their own delivery. So they've got rid of UPS and FedEx and all of that. And so they've now built a vertical integrated delivery. They're the biggest supply chain company in the world.
Okay, so we all learned something new there. I knew that they were taking over the world, basically, but there's some interesting facts to take out of that, and that makes for a very good quiz, by the way. Gary, you just keep putting yourself out there for more work.
No, don't worry.
But really appreciate your contribution and the value that you're adding to these sessions. We're going to make sure you join all of them. This is one that we're all comfortable with, the electricity challenges. In most African countries, we all have these problems. Some are worse than others. In Guinea, the generator remains the major source of energy. So these are these cost us more money than we need to. Everything costs us more because if we need to run generators, if we are down with our power, we can't run production, then we have to do overtime when we can to catch up. It's just a vicious circle. So what is the solution? I mean, for me, we're in a country where it's sun all the time. Why we have not adopted more of a solar approach to the power supply, I don't know. Maybe there's some good reason for that. And private suppliers. I mean, in other countries in the world, you're not beholden to one organization for power. You can choose, pick and choose who you want to provide you with these services. But we seem to be stuck with Eskom and our municipalities, and I do believe that the bulk of, and I don't know how true it is, but this is somebody from Eskom told me that the reason that we have so many breakdowns is because the municipalities are the ones that are not maintaining the substations. It's not actually Eskom, it's the municipalities that have let them run bare bones. So this is a challenge right the way through Africa. It's not going to go away anytime soon. How we work around this, I don't know. I really don't know. This is quite depressing. And I think since COVID, we've had a lot more electricity power outages. I know our office and that side it's been one after the other. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe China will buy out Eskom. At this stage, I think we're all hoping for China to come and do something. I know it sounds terrible, but it's a reality. Okay, so risk, and we talked a bit about this. We've covered this, and I think in a number of the different slides, the political risk in the African countries. So it results in the loss of investments, unemployment, social unrest, etc., etc., etc. I think with a lot of what's going on now with COVID-19, it's obviously all politically motivated, and we're seeing it firsthand that we are basically being told what to do, when to do it, how we can do it. That affects business. It's affected our economy to a point that, you know, if we're going to recover, it's going to be decades away from now. But it's not going to go anytime soon. I think we are kind of stuck with these types of problems. How do we get away from it? How do we change it? How do we make it work to our advantage? I don't know. I think as long as we are stuck in this political spiral, nothing is going to change anytime soon. But I mean, that's a completely different topic for another day, and we could probably go round and round for hours on that one. So we'll leave that one. Third-party logistics, and we are running way over time. So I'm just going to go through the rest of the presentation quite quickly. Lack of organized third-party logistics. They have limited number of vehicles, lack of skills and professionalism. Ongoing training and support are required, and due to the poor remuneration, staff turnover is high. Staff turnover is never good because you've got to start all over again with the training and go back to basics. So the solution there would be some skills training and professionalization, which is obviously what SafeX strives to do for the supply chain profession. So that's just another component to the sorts of challenges and what are the solutions that we would need to provide in order to improve that across the African continent. I know that at the moment in South Africa, the 3PLs are taking huge strain. Massive retrenchments, closures. It's a scary area, I think, to be in at the moment. Although most of it's not good, but that's particularly hard hit. Counterfeit products is a big problem, especially in the medical sector. I mean, if you take a look at the picture above, one is counterfeit, one is real. You can't even tell the difference. What are you getting in that counterfeit medication? Who knows? I don't even want to know what sort of cocktails they put in there. But people are taking this. People are taking these drugs, and who knows what the consequence of that is. I mean, it's probably life-threatening stuff. So how do we stop it? How do we prevent it from happening? I don't know, especially in the public health sector. It's a big issue. It's also obviously another discussion to be had all on its own. But I mean, we're not just looking at pharmaceuticals. We're looking at everything from t-shirts to shoes to probably shampoo. Everything can be counterfeit. If you can counterfeit money, I'm sure you can pretty much counterfeit everything else. So these are another big issues. And I mean, these are like the corruption. It's how do you get rid of it? How do you eliminate it? What is the solution to that? I don't have an answer, and I don't know if anybody here has got any solutions for how we deal with that. So
just a very quick one on that corruption. I went to the university in Cotonou in Benin, and Fidel has just raised the fact that the counterfeit drug problem in Benin is horrific. And the students there are actually doing a massive amount of research. So they're starting the awareness very young. And I think that, you know, again, everything to do with corruption and counterfeiting, it goes back to educating people that it's wrong. So that's just my 10 cents.
Just talking about the student angle, and this is something to think about. And this is, we sit with the problem at the moment. And any of you in industry that have employed people fresh out of university, and Colafella, this is not aimed at you, okay? This is just a general observation from industry, is that when our young professionals, our aspiring future supply chain professionals leave university, they are not fit for purpose. They do not have the requisite skills to perform functions within supply chain management. So there is still a lot of upskilling that needs to happen. Aside from a practical application, there's a lot of knowledge that's missing in the curriculum. So I always go back to the demand-driven scenario, because demand-driven is typically not covered in the curriculum. Yet it's one of the fastest growing methodologies in the world at the moment, in terms of adding benefit to organization, improving return on investment, all those good things. We need to be looking to our students for solutions. We need to be looking at our youth to start putting together solutions and ideas for how we can change the game moving forward. So we give them projects on how would you tackle counterfeit? How would you tackle these challenges with 3PL logistics providers? What could they do to improve themselves, make them more competitive, reduce costs? You know, the youngsters are not set in their ways and set in their thinking. So for them, you know, the sky's the limit. They can think completely out of the box. They can throw ideas out there. Who's to say it could never work? So maybe these are the things that we need to think about. We need to put together these projects, and we need to invite students to participate in them and see what value they can add. And then they go into the professional world, and they've got some extended knowledge that they've gained from participating in projects of this nature. It's just a thought that I'm thinking about, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't put together a mini project as a trial to see if we can't do something like this with a handful of the youth. So if anybody's keen to get involved in something like that, if you think it's a good idea, if you think it's a really bad idea, that's also fine. But I think there could be something in that to think about. So if I have to say that there is potential, I have to believe that there's potential. I'm not ready to give up believing in South Africa or Africa. I think that we're resourceful, resilient, and this should be reflected in how businesses respond to the ever-changing environment and crises like COVID-19. I think from a South African supply chain perspective, we did well. I think that we did well. We held our own. But its impact on the new world of tomorrow, we need to be more creative and innovative, and innovation is the name of the game. So what do we do now to make sure that we change the way we go forward, and that we change our tomorrow, and that we work in tomorrow? There's a lot of stuff that we've covered, a lot of information that we've unpacked, and there's a lot to think about. There's a lot of negativity, but there are parts of positivity, and there are some good things in there, and we can't go away thinking of it purely from a negative point of view. So I want everybody to sit and think and go back to the first slide where I spoke about positivity. Please think of something positive. Think of something positive that South Africa's done during COVID-19, that a business has done during COVID-19, that they've improved, they've advanced, they've added value. We've got to look at it from a positive perspective. So looking for solutions. We talked about this last week, and you would have seen a lot of the marketing going around about the Asca Supply Chain in Action conference that's coming up. I encourage you all to participate. It's non-expensive. We have incredible speakers, primarily from across Africa, different countries in Africa. The idea is to bring thinking from other Africans to share together amongst ourselves to tackle our challenges and our problems that we know about. Yes, the USA and the Europe have solutions, but we can't always rely on outside. Sometimes we need to look in to find our own solutions. So we could be looking at Kenya, and Kenya have got some great solution that they are doing on, I don't know, they've got some project that has showed good results. Your Twigger project, Gary, how could we do something like that in South Africa? You know, how do we bring that here or do something similar and add value to a part of the business to improve the lives of South Africans? So this is the reason for this conference. And it's Solutions for Africa. That's what it's about. Up-to-date, relevant, useful content for Africa, from Africa, for Africans. We need to come together and fight this fight as one. So it's a 2-day event. I really, really would like to encourage you to register, to attend. I promise you won't be disappointed. We've got an incredible lineup of speakers. We've got some really, really good content. And I think that this, on top of everything else, we've been doing a lot of work to try and service our community and look after our community. But at the end of the day, and I think I've said this before, and I will say it again, SAPEX is a not-for-profit, and everything that we do for the benefit of the community. But we also have bills to pay. So we ask for your support in signing up as members, as attending events that are paid for. Even if it's a small amount, it all goes towards contributing to helping us keep going and bringing you more. So I have gone long over my time. I'm sorry. I can talk an awful lot. So I'm going to say thank you all for being part of this session, this very long session. And before I wrap up, has anybody got any closing remarks or comments that they'd like to make before we say farewell?
No, I
Great
just want to say
session.
goodbye and not tie anyone, but good session. Cheers, Tanya.
Brilliant
Cheers,
session.
Jenny. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks
Gary.
very much, Gary.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. Lots of you were very quiet. We'll have to pick on you next time.
Cheers, Tanya. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all
everyone.
very much.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Don't forget tomorrow.